Welcome to the Black Geeks Podcast, episode 125, Sunday, March 8th. I'm here with my fellow Black Geeks, the Potbelly Samurai, and King Face. What up, fellas?
Yo.
Good to see you.
So tonight, like most nights, we're going to wrap up, the week's events. We're going to bring some interesting topics. We're also going to wrap up this week's episode of Walking Dead and some other stuff that happened this week, like Gotham. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. came back this week as well. But of course, right before we do any of that, we're going to get into our weekly news segment. Call it the Sith News. All right, so getting right into Sith News.
Hold on. We don't get no Sith News music?
You know Sith music? You gonna do that again?
No music?
We really gotta play this game now?
I really gotta like.
Yep.
Face, do we gotta dum.
There we go. Go ahead, Face. Go ahead.
You can't do it on your own.
Come on, it's popping it. He wants us to pop and lock, son.
Is that what we want to do? Huh? You don't want to do your own thing? We gotta do something embarrassing now, just so you can do your own show.
Don't show the nipples, son. Don't show them the nipples.
I actually was good. No.
Give me some music. Give me some music. Do some music then.
Please, the children gotta.
He about to do the truffle shuffle.
Truffle butter shuffle.
All right, so getting right into Sith News. There was a report currently, there's an experimental drug out where they found a way to turn your white fat cells into brown fat cells. So for those of you who don't know what that is, basically science has dictated that your white fat cells are all the fat that none of us like, all the stuff that gives us, those extra body parts and extra girth, extra mass we don't want in our body. Whereas the brown, I tried to, I tried to
handles, spare tires,
all of that stuff,
triple chins.
And so basically, your brown fat cells are the ones that's responsible for being lean and helping you burn fat. So they've tried this in mice already. They've tried it with mice they've genetically made obese, and they've tried it with mice that's just naturally obese. And in all cases, within several weeks, by giving them this chemical to increase their brown fat cells, they've all lost 50% of their mass in several weeks.
Yo, I need that. Sign me up for the clinical trial.
Exactly. So when they're looking for human trials, look no further than the Black Geeks, because we will definitely take them pills, buddy. We'll take them pills. All right, moving right along. This week there was some Apple news, such as they said Apple will replace AT&T in the Dow Jones Industrial Average. So for those of you who follow the stock market, you know that the Dow and NASDAQ and things of that nature, they're all a conglomerate of different stocks. Well, it looks like AT&T is getting kicked out and being replaced with Apple. As we know, Apple was recently named one of the largest, fastest growing companies in history. So there you go. Also, we had the Game Developers Conference, and this week at GDC there was a good panel. It talked about there was a black developers were speaking out about stereotypes in gaming. So for those of you who don't know, if you're gamers, this is an issue that comes up from time to time, especially in games like Grand Theft Auto or first-person shooters like I'm going to say Call of Duty Modern Warfare, where it seems like if they do have black characters in the game, they seem to follow certain stereotypes. They're either gangster or a hood, a thug of some type, or in the military games like Call of Duty, you got the old craggy drill sergeant guy who dies and everybody wants to go fight for him. We've also seen that in Halo. So they spoke out some of this and say, why do black characters, if there are black characters, have to be stereotypes? So it's an interesting read. Go check that out. This week, we found out that Comcast, once again, are some of the biggest assholes there are. I mean, it's almost like every other week you get Comcast.
Whoa, Econius is putting money into the swear word jar?
So this week, So this week, HBO Go was made available for the PlayStation 4, finally. And unfortunately, if you're a PlayStation 4 owner and you happen to get your internet through Comcast, Comcast said they're blocking it because they're trying to figure things out, whatever that means. If you're AT&T and Verizon customer, you're good. But Comcast customers, you're not getting HBO Go until Comcast says you can have HBO Go on your Sony PlayStation 4. And for those of you who don't remember, Comcast was the same company that did the shakedown on Netflix when everybody that used Netflix on Comcast services, it was really slow until Netflix paid Comcast blood money, and then you got your Netflix sped up. So there you go.
Wow. Wow.
Also this week, Harrison Ford was in a plane crash. So he wasn't killed or like that. We don't know if he wasn't seriously injured, but we hope that he gets better, and hopefully
write him a ticket.
Write him a ticket.
I thought he had a broken arm and a broken hip.
Yeah, but they said it wasn't like
pelvis or something.
They didn't say he was going to die from the injuries, though. So the idea is, hopefully this doesn't stop the Star Wars production. That's the main thing. Also, recently, Star Wars Rebels wrapped up. So hopefully you guys saw Star Wars Rebel because they had a reveal at the end that was really shocking. No one saw that coming. So for those who haven't watched the animated series Star Wars Rebels, I highly recommend it. Also this week, we had the return to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and we started getting into the whole Inhumans.
Yo, hold on. Face, do you mind? You're supposed to be like the stealthy dude. What's going on?
That's not me, dude.
No, not Face. My bad. Ghost, you're supposed to be the stealthy dude. What's going on?
I'm just saying.
Are you chopping something? What are you doing?
Oh,
you scratching on the ones and twos?
Nah, I injured my tendon in my elbow, so now I gotta use this machine to. I'm gonna put me on mute.
And how'd you injure your tendon in your elbow?
Hey!
You gotta go there, right?
I'm just asking. You were sitting there, and you got the motion. Like, what's really good?
See, we gotta talk off screen because I don't want nobody to get offended.
All right. Stop.
The 5 fingers of death have struck again.
Now with the kung fu grip. Move right along. The Expendables is going to be headed to TV as an event series. So, there you go. So they didn't make enough movies, they're now trying to bring it on the TV. For those of you who subscribe to EA Access, the $30 a year gaming service where EA will give you X amount of games for free, Madden NFL 15 have been added to the vault this week. So for those of you who were waiting to play Madden for free, if you will, it's out there. I did play one game and got slaughtered miserably, so I probably won't ever play it again. Moving right along. There are some people out there that's already giving their opinion about tomorrow's Apple event, which we will add our names to that list. But they're saying that the Apple Watch is going to be a flop. So, good article on BGR. It's just wow. Also, EA shut down the studio that created The Sims this week. So for those of you who have been, looking at Maxis for all these years, they were shut down. There's been a study about which companies had the most product placement in films of 2014. And surprise, surprise, Apple won that list. For those of you who follow technology and look at the placement in movies and television, you've known for years that for the most part, Apple's been non-existent, or they conveniently covered up that it was Apple products. But I know I've noticed watching several programs, television and movies this year, that I start seeing a lot more of MacBooks and iMacs and things of that nature. And also, DARPA this week, just showing you where our technology is going, they had a quadriplegic woman fly an F-35 with nothing but her thoughts. So yes, we're there. Stand by to stand by. And And last but not least, a shocker to all, Jada Pinkett was being interviewed this week on Live with Kelly and Michael, and she said something that kind of freaked people out. And basically, she said she will not be coming back to Gotham for season 2. So, a lot of people who follow Gotham are really upset, particularly because she is a very popular character on the show. So, there you go. And that's it for Sith News this week.
That's crazy, man. That's crazy that they're going to do that. Well, it is what it is, man. It happens from time to time.
Yeah, but if they pulling her out, they probably got another big character with a storyline they planning for next season.
Here's the thing with Gotham. Here's the thing with Gotham, real quick. I mean, and we talked about it on the show. One of the things that we were worried about before Gotham even took off was how they going to tell the story and from what angle. And even after the first week or two, while I think the show was good, I think more to the point is better than I could even possibly have imagined it would be. But still, one of my critiques and one of the things that they're doing right now that's kind of killing it is if they it's like they're all over the place with the story. If they just, like, when they introduce a lot of Batman's villain or his rogue gallery, I think that's kind of lame since right now he's only like 12. And you're getting these adult versions of characters that he'll be going in and back and forth with for years, basically saying that he's only messing with geriatrics at the point when he gets older, which makes no sense. But they've already introduced Harvey Dent as basically 15, 20 years his senior. They already introduced the Riddler. And then they'll introduce, I don't want to do any spoiler. You know what? Forget that.
Look, at this point, people should have seen the show.
Yeah, they already introduced the Joker. They already, they doing all this stuff, and it's like, at this point, what are you doing? I think the story about when they did the Penguin, and Fish Mooney, and the Falcone and Maroni, I think that right there is good enough. Trying to put his entire rogue gallery into this show is dumb because it's killing. That's the one thing that could kill the show because it's unnecessary. I don't need to see the Joker right now. You don't have to. I mean, you've already done it, but it's like, why? Why? Poison Ivy always wearing green. It's like, really? So you kind of. It's kind of like, okay, they did the Selena Kyle thing. Okay, that was a little bit of stretch, but I thought they pulled it off. But to keep on, showing people is like, it kind of shoots its own self in the foot because the whole point of the show is supposed to be Gotham before Batman, and all you're doing is referencing Batman the entire time. It just seems counterproductive to where I thought they were going to go. I think that kind of puts a dent into where they're going to go in the future, and I hope they kind of fix themselves because I really do like the show. But it can get a little stupid after a while if you keep putting his entire rogue gallery in there.
So what do you think about the whole Jada Pinkett not coming back? I mean, on one level, that kind of confirms that, she's probably going to die this season, let's just be honest. Which is crazy because, to me, Gotham is Fish Mooney and Penguin. Those are some. I mean, Gordon's storylines are finally getting a little bit good, but they basically carried the show as far as I'm concerned.
But you know what though? If and I don't know how they're gonna do it, but you kind of see it coming. It's not a surprise really. At some point, there could only be one: Fish Mooney, Cobblepot. You see them coming to a place. If they continue down that road, one of them got to go. And you know who's going to be.
I mean, and here's the deal, though. This is television, and it's television based on comics. Just because she's not in next season doesn't mean we're not going to see Fish Mooney again sometime in the future.
I mean, you remember how Vivian Banks went from dark skin to just high yellow out of nowhere. So it was just like, hey.
Cat Viv.
Viv went straight high yellow like it's cool, and nobody blinked. Like, hey, something wrong? What's going on?
Nah, people blink. You know,
Talk about on the show. That would have been hard for me.
Or the two Beckys on Roseanne. Remember the two Beckys?
Pretty much.
It's like just come back and it's like, hey, hi Becky. You're like, that ain't Becky.
Yo, it's crazy because now that you said it, I can't remember the first Becky. I know there were two Beckys. But you said it, I was like, the first Becky looked like.
Dude, you got to go on IMDb.
You
Give yourself a refresher.
You would know.
I don't know if I see it. I know they did it because I remember who's this girl playing on this joint. Oh, that's my sister Becky. No, it ain't. No, whatever. It happened.
But it'll be interesting. I mean, I agree with you saying. Like, it's kind of ridiculous that a lot of the characters, some of the core quintessential characters of the Rogue Gallery is, basically old as hell. But I would like to see them, like, really delve more into, like, the gritty street crime aspect of it. Like, and that's something I don't think they really, kind of been going into that hard. They've been focusing so much on bringing in, Scarecrow and his father, bringing in Selena Kyle. Like, they really haven't done a lot on the street level. Like, they kind of gotten away from the whole conspiracy behind, the Waynes getting the Waynes family getting killed. So it's like a lot of ground that they've left uncovered to kind of bring in characters that they've aged up way too much.
But here's the thing. I don't even know if they're going to follow that the Joker actually killed his parents because they introduced the Joker as a child. I mean, they didn't, 100% say that was the Joker. Or at least I don't think they actually 100% said that. But come on now. That kid...
they put it out there. Like, that is the Joker.
Because if he wasn't the Joker, he's the best something like the Joker that I've seen in a long time. But one of the things, let's transition to another topic. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. came back this week, and it's kind of crazy when you compare Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to Gotham, because it's like, I don't know what it is about DC on television. Are they, just better at it than Marvel? I mean, I like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but the mood and the feel is just not the same. I don't know how to explain that, but this week, we finally got to see what happened to Raina. And what her transformation was. We also got to find out that obviously that, that there's some more Inhumans around. I don't want to spoil it too much, but they definitely followed the Inhuman storyline. They did some more of Hydra. It looks like the agents are getting the upper hand and things. But a lot of people are wondering where's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. going. What Inhuman storyline. Personally, I happen to think that the whole Inhumans thing is a way for them to start laying the foundation to introduce more mutants, but they're going to call them Inhumans because of the whole licensing thing. That's my thinking anyway. So if they can establish it here now, then you got Age of Ultron coming up, and you're going to have Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, who's rumored to be Inhumans. Is that their long-term strategy to get around the whole
I think
Fox thing?
I think that right there is what's killing Marvel on the TV front. It's that they don't have all their characters, because what the thing that you're saying, like, if that's the role that they're going to play, that kind of just craps all over everything. Ain't nobody really trying to hear all of that. It's like you're making your own thing up right now. See, what DC has going for them, as whack as I think their comics have been in the past, they kind of follow in suit to the characters. They're not making stuff. When I say, and it's something that we could probably talk about later, but when I say making stuff up, man, y'all got to understand, just coming up with your own thing and it's corny. That's what I mean by making it. I mean, you could come up with an aspect of a comic book character and you'd be like, well, in the comic books, Barry Allen and Iris, they were always together. Whatever, man. Eventually, they're not playing that game right out the cuff. But when I say making stuff up, I'm like, the whole Inhumans are mutants and thing. That's just corny as hell, because that's not what it is. And they have a whole thing that they could do with that. And if that's the role they're gonna play, that just seems like something they're doing just so they can have certain characters on the show. It's forced and it's corny. And I think
we don't know for sure.
And that's what I'm saying, if that's what they're doing. Because right now, you don't really see where they're going with it. Like,
I mean, this could be a setup for the Inhumans being included in future projects on the cinematic side.
Well, they are doing an Inhumans movie.
That's what I'm saying. Like, this is,
and that's great. Like, I hope they do.
This is a setup. I mean, this is a setup for that. Like, if you look at like how Marvel is layering their TV with their movie projects, it makes sense for them to keep layering it in this way and introducing characters. I mean, let's face it, we all know who the Inhumans are, but the Inhumans aren't like a real mainstream, kind of comic or story arc. I mean, they've been included in a lot of different stuff, but I mean, they're not like uber popular. So this is a way to introduce them so that the movie gets more traction.
And I think that's, again, Skye, apparently what I've read up on who Skye is supposed to be, she is Inhuman in the comics. And Raynor, a lot of people thought she might be the character, what's the female with the tiger stripe or whatever? I can't remember the character name.
I can't
Comic
remember.
experts.
No, I saw what they were calling her, but
she ended up not being that. In fact, she had thorns all over her body.
Yeah, the character that she might be, and the name that everybody was saying on Twitter, it would have been a stretch. I remember that much.
And they introduced a blind Inhuman that can teleport, and we still don't know what Skye's dad is, but he's definitely an Inhuman.
First of all, Skye's father is not an Inhuman. I mean, if that's what they're going to do, that's what they're going to do. But
if he's not, then he's something else.
Well, we already know. He's Mr. Hyde. We already know who he is. Yeah. We knew what. The thing that threw me off was the blood thing, because the way they showed it, it looked like he had cracks on his skin. But once they said Calvin Zabel, I was like, "Oh, Mr. Hyde! Yeah. Oh, she's Quake." There was no. You knew who she, because in the comics, that's who she is, Daisy Johnson.
Tell everybody who Mr. Hyde is. And
Mr. Hyde is he's like just a metahuman. He's not a Inhuman or anything like that. He's a character within the Marvel universe. They kind of basically did a Jekyll and Hyde character. A doctor who doesn't have to take a serum, could just turn into a Hyde character. They didn't do that on the show. They didn't actually make him Hulk out, and it makes sense that they didn't do that because they already got the Hulk. Because for all intents and purposes, he's the Hulk with sin. Well, if you want to call it sane, but
he crazy.
He's crazy. But what I'm saying is
he's functional crazy.
He's functional crazy. He's like, he knows what he's doing, and he's not as strong as all, but he basically Hulks out.
And he has sociopathic tendencies.
Exactly, and he has a daughter,
named Daisy.
Named Daisy, who obviously once you figured out they said Calvin Zabel, I was like, well, this guy is Quake. So by that depiction, she should have Quake's powers.
She's developing Quake's powers now. She just doesn't realize it yet. In the comics, Daisy Jones is actually a member of S.H.I.E.L.D. And
sort of.
Well, she was at one point. She was the acting director of S.H.I.E.L.D.
That came way after. I'm talking about when she came on. She was Nick Fury's basically enforcer, and that was when Nick Fury wasn't necessarily with S.H.I.E.L.D. Now she came on, was acting director. This was after the fact. This is when the whole Captain America comes back, takes over fucking S.H.I.E.L.D.
Either way, she's S.H.I.E.L.D. I mean, it's like the way they doing it, like right now with her character. It don't follow the comic, but it does follow the comic at the same time, and it makes sense for what they're doing. You know, so at some point, like with everything that's going on with Coulson and like the mistrust there, things like that, she might end up being like second in command at some point down the line if they continue along the same path.
Even in the comics, she wasn't an Inhuman.
Nah.
This is something that they're just doing, and that's cool. I'm not gonna say cool.
It's kind of like you guys said, though. They may have introduced the whole Inhuman angle to go ahead and start getting everybody's head adjusted to the idea of the Inhumans.
But even like with the Inhumans, like the way they're doing it right now with the with the Kree like having influenced them. Like the Inhumans in the comic books, they evolved on Earth separate from humans. They were like far and apart. Like they a whole nother species, even though they human at the same time. Like it's kind of crazy the way they did it, but it makes sense. Like they have their technology is off the hook. They're away from everybody else. They're in a city that's shielded, from humanity. I'm trying to think of like the different teams that's interacted with the Inhumans. Like the Fantastic Four has interacted with the Inhumans.
X-Men.
The X-Men has interacted with the humans.
Everybody has
Spider-Man.
at some point. Everybody's interacted with, and humans were those characters that would just show up and like every now, like when they did the Illuminati thing, Black Bolt is part of it. Whether it's Black Bolt, Professor X, Doctor Strange, and Iron Man or whatever, they did the whole thing within.
Don't forget about Tony Stark.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Iron Man, he's part of it.
My bad.
Yeah, and then
yes, Tony Stark is Iron Man.
Yeah, that's right. And then they do the tie-ins with the X-Men, most notably when Quicksilver has a history with them, so that's somewhere they might be going because he actually has a history with one of the characters. I'm not going to go on into it, but they show up often within the comics. It's almost like every now and again they need a storyline, and it's like, oh my God, they're about to be overwhelmed. The Avengers about to be overwhelmed. What's going to happen? Oh my God, here comes here comes the Inhumans, and then they have their own little story arc because they are part Kree. Well, not part Kree, but they have been. They are humans that were experimented by the Kree, and they're Kree-based powers. That was part of the Kree's attempt to expand, because the whole part in the comic books is the Kree is a genetically stagnant race. They haven't evolved in eons. Where every race has evolved, they were incapable of evolving, so they came to Earth trying to do some experience in hopes to try to evolve. That's been their whole shtick throughout the Marvel universe. So, I mean, it's an interesting twist. They've already introduced Kree within the movies. I didn't like that being a Kree individual when we were trying to all guess what that thing was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because it didn't look like a Kree, but it was blue. So we were just like, okay. And then it ended up being Kree, which is crazy. But overall, man, I don't know, man. It's interesting to watch. I don't think it's all that bad.
Speaking of, television and comic adaptations, there's some breaking news that literally, as we were talking, the tweet came out from IGN, basically stating that I'm tongue twisted. Valiant Comics, they have just landed a deal to bring their characters to television. So they're not like Image, and people may not know all of their characters, but that goes to show you that this thing is getting, in my opinion, it's getting larger. It's getting bigger. This whole concept of comics being into television. So it's just once again another avenue to look at as far as what's going on in the world of comics. So I thought I'd just pass it out there for those.
Well, no, that makes sense. I mean, that was one of the topics we was going to talk about anyway. But I mean, we can go into it. I mean, when you look at everything that's out, because you got some people like, well, when are they going to stop doing comic books? Like, well, when you kind of look at it, they've been doing comic book movies since forever. And it's just now that they got, the more prominent titles. But I mean, you look at Walking Dead, that's a comic. And they're doing a show. I mean, it's a comic. And whether you're talking about books too, I mean, there's some interesting content with these people who write this stuff, and it's like, okay, let's do a movie about it. It doesn't always pan out, but especially now, if you get the right direction, hey, why not? I mean, yeah, they messed up. I want to see them redo Spawn. That's one of the one shows I'm like, yo, redo that.
Well, it's funny
HBO to bring that joint back. Like that was one of the best animated joints ever. When HBO did Spawn.
Yeah.
Funny you should mention that. There's a news article Nerdist reported toward the end of February that they're doing a reboot of at least the movie so far. So we're at least getting a new Spawn movie, which I would say is better than nothing.
So, I wonder if Michael Jai White will be reprising his role, or if they casted it anew.
He'll probably go somewhere else. They just want to forget the first one ever happened. And that's crazy because I like Michael Jai White, but if he comes back, people will still be thinking, oh, the joint you did with the John Leguizamo.
Exactly.
They can't bring any one of those. They can't bring any one of them back because we don't want to remember that.
Well, at the end of the day, it'd also be good too for them to go young with the idea of franchising. And it'll definitely be rated R. That was already revealed. And they're going hard with it.
Because you can't do Spawn properly without going rated R. I mean, that's a dark
Hold on.
comic.
We'll go into that. We'll do that.
Okay, so moving right along. So tonight, of course, was yet another episode of The Walking Dead. And tonight's episode, some could call it filler, but the comics it was based on tonight was pretty much filler for those who follow the comics. And they did some serious fan service tonight. I did a lot of tweeting of almost page per page references. They had the scene with Michonne hanging up her sword on the wall. They did the scene with, the anger at the party. Now, the one thing to remember, for many weeks, we, especially me, have been saying, trying to figure out these characters that's still on the show that shouldn't be per the comics, such as Sasha. And the fact that they killed Andrea off way early into the series, I had always felt like Sasha would be the Andrea replacement. And that was pretty much confirmed tonight. There was some scenes tonight with Sasha carrying around a sniper rifle, with her being able to be in the watchtower, that basically showed that she's following the track that Andrea followed in the comics at this point in the story. Also, which was surprising to me, and something a lot of the fans had been complaining about for quite some time, especially fans of the comics, about Michonne seeming to get weaker and weaker as far as emotionally. And what we mean by that is, in the comic books, Michonne is very cold, very disconnected. She doesn't do a lot of talking. But in the TV show, she's, does a lot of talking. She shows a lot of emotion. So there was a pivotal scene tonight where they had the party, and in the comic, it was Michonne who comes to the party, and the women are casually talking, and she's just kind of like freaking out, like, are these guys serious? So there's a scene in the comic book, and it's almost word for word in the show tonight, where they ask Sasha, what's her favorite food, because she'd like to cook all the new people their favorite food. And Sasha kind of didn't want to talk about it. And then the lady was like, please, I'd be so worried about it. And she snapped and said, that's what you're worried about? And she stormed off. That was a panel-by-panel representation of what Michonne did in the comic. So, I revised my theory that Sasha is now a combination of Andrea and Michonne. And when asked on Twitter, why would they do that? My response was, there's some things that Andrea does in the comic book that I don't think they're willing to do on the TV show. So they have to give Sasha some more depth. Whereas making Michonne weak or weaker doesn't really do anything to the character as long as she still goes through her plot points. So that's my personal theory. Two other major things that happened tonight.
So basically what you're not going to get that boom, chicka, boom,
I don't think that's going to happen. Furthermore, they also did the scene, they started this, develop a plot where Jesse's husband was at the party, and he was being a complete ass, and Rick kind of looked at him and was like, and they kind of brushed it off. I'm not going to get any spoilers there, but Rick and Jesse started getting real comfortable, and toward the end of the show, Jesse was carrying Judith and was talking about how it's been so long since she had a baby and stuff, and she hands the baby to Rick, and as Rick gets the baby, he kisses her on the cheek. and she kind of jumps like startled, but then she gives him the sidelong glance like, okay, that was cool. So a lot of people are wondering where that's going to go. Two other major plot points, and I'll get you guys' opinion. There was also a scene with Daryl and Aaron started really getting buddy. They met each other outside the walls. Daryl was hunting, Aaron was apparently hunting, and they saw a horse that, Aaron said they've been trying to catch for a while. And they were supposed to go catch this horse, but they got caught up by some zombies, and eventually the zombies get the horse, and they kill the zombies together. And as they get back to the town, Aaron's asked Daryl to come over for spaghetti dinner. And Daryl's like, I don't think so, because he's not going to the party. And then Daryl says, well, if you weren't going to the party, why you told me to go? And he says, because I thought you should go. So Daryl agrees to the spaghetti dinner, and he's sitting there with Aaron and his partner. And after dinner's over, he takes Daryl out to the parking garage, and he shows Daryl he has all these motorcycle parts and stuff. He said, I think you could use it. And Daryl, basically, here, this is for you. And Daryl's kind of, still trying to figure out where this guy's head is. And then the guy reveals to him that the reason why you haven't gotten a job assigned to you yet was because I told Deanne not to give you a job because you already got a job. And Daryl says, what's that? He says, I want you to be the next, I want you to be a recruiter like me because I don't want, my partner to go out there anymore. It's dangerous for him, but you know how to handle yourself out there. So that's where that plot line ended, and a lot of people are wondering on Twitter if this is the start of the storyline that's been rumored about Daryl maybe being, in the closet or homosexual or whatever. And some people were saying that would explain why he kept turning down Carol's advances and why he's getting real comfortable around Aaron, whereas everybody else so far he hasn't really trusted. Starting to open up.
Rick.
Yeah, except for Rick. Now, last but not least, the one thing that's really driving Twitter abuzz right now, Crazy Carol has once again shown that she is quite insane. Again, she's playing they call her Stefford Carol because she has the cardigan sweater on and everything, and she looks like she's baking cookies and she's chatting it up. But then she has a private meeting with Rick, Daryl, and herself about what they're going to do, and Carol's going to steal guns. And she tells Rick, hey, best thing about being here is I get to pretend to be normal again. So it's all an image, but for everybody else, she's just a normal housewife. So at a certain point in the story, the little boy loses, they run out of cookies, and he's mad, and Rick sees him, and he says, I know the cookie maker, so, I'll hook you up. I'll get her to make you some more. So Carol sneaks off from the party, and the little kid follows her. And Carol is going to steal the guns. Well, the boy catches her, and she's shocked when she sees him. And she says, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, I know you make the cookies, so I follow you. So Carol says, well, look, you didn't see anything here, because he says, what are you doing? Don't worry about that. You haven't seen anything. So the boy says, I tell my mom everything. And then she starts walking up to him really close and backs him in a corner. And she basically tells him, she says, you don't want to tell your mother. And he's like, why? I tell my mother everything. She says, because one of these nights, you're going to wake up and you're not going to be in your bedroom anymore. And you're going to notice that you're far away from here, outside the walls, tied to a tree. And the walkers are going to come and get you. And they're going to eat you while you're alive.
I love her.
And so the little boy is sitting there mortified. His eyes are like gigantic, and he's just like, "Oh my God, is this woman serious?" And the way Carol delivered those lines, Martina McBride, it was so dark and creepy. She could have had a Hannibal movie. She could be Hannibal. And so the little boy is literally about to pee his pants, and then she says, "Or you could be quiet and get cookies. In fact, you'll get plenty of cookies." And then she says, but I'll let you choose, and I think I know what you're going to choose.
Nice. I love her.
So those were the highlights of tonight. Not going to speculate what's going to happen next. Just in the little bit that you noticed, there was an awkward scene with Michonne and Abraham, where Abraham was basically, just telling her that he had too much to drink, and they were chatting it up. And some people were nervous because they thought this was a prelude to Abraham and Michonne possibly hooking up. Personally, I don't think that's the case, but with this show and the changes they're making, I can't say for sure. I just don't happen to think that's the case. So, we also got introduced to another character tonight, Tobin. Tobin was introduced tonight in the gun room, and he kind of flirted with Carol. And for fans of the comic, should know who Tobin is. So it's very interesting that they show Abraham being flirtatious with Michonne, and they introduce Tobin. So I think they're developing a side plot, and I'm going to leave it at that. So that being said, what do you guys think about tonight's episode, some of the things you're hearing, and where they're going with the comics, especially the development of Sasha?
Dude, I think you put everything out there already. The next time we talk about The Walking Dead, we should probably only give you like a 30-second preview and then let us chime in after that. I believe you've covered everything, sir, and I do agree with you with regard to Sasha. But I do disagree. I think Rick gonna tap that.
Wow, he went all in with that one. he went all in with that one. He said, that's beyond spoilers. You went all in. Wow.
I think they're gonna let that one ride. This the new generation.
Wow, he said that. All right, so let me go in because before it gets awkward. So, I think me personally, the Sasha thing, I just wish they would have let Michonne do it. I mean, I get if you've been watching this show, you've seen they've been softening up Michonne a little bit. So the fact that she's doing what she's doing right now isn't a shocker. You know what I'm saying? It's not like, oh my God, I can't believe they're going soft with her, because she's been kind of getting soft this entire time. And I don't mean talkative. I mean just how they had her in a joint where when they first got approached, and she's all like, we need this, we need to be safe. That's not Michonne. Michonne had always been, whatever y'all gonna do, we can do it. That's been her attitude in the comics, and that was her attitude at first in the show. And it seemed like once they left the prison, she changed it up a little bit.
Michonne's attitude in the comic don't really change up till like way down the road, and
way, and even then it don't necessarily change.
But it does a little bit when the royalty, when the king of kings. I'm not giving any no more spoilers.
You just gave a lot. You just gave several spoilers right now. You killing the game. You need to stop.
That's not a spoiler. Like nobody knows. Nobody knows about the king of the kings.
They do now. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is, it's one of those things where, okay, maybe they're doing it for TV, making her more user friendly. I guess that's the only word I can say.
User friendly.
But I think
I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, but I think what they need to do, I think they brought in Sasha to bring that balance, to balance out so her character ain't going all in. But I think that's kind of the disservice, because that's what make Michonne so, so enticing. Like you're watching it because you want to see how she's gonna react to stuff. And now they basically, instead of having just Michonne be Michonne, they got Michonne and then her shadow, which is Sasha, who's also Andrea. And so it's like, all right, so she's doing the aspects of both of those characters. And it's kind of like, if you one thing, if they had got rid of Michonne and she was doing both, but Michonne is there. So that's kind of crazy.
I think the internet would crash if they got rid of Michonne.
It's not, but that's what I'm saying. So, I mean, they should have.
Sasha to do, though. I mean, They need something for Sasha to do. I mean, think about it.
They should do what Andrea was doing.
Well,
You know what?
This is Hollywood, so
I'm not even saying that because Andrea had depth before that. You see what I'm saying?
But the real Andrea they killed, and the biggest depth that Andrea had was her whole relationship with Dale, and how that affected her to make her the basically the sociopath with the gun in the comics.
Well, they had that if they didn't mess Tyrese up. They had that. They had that out. They still do because Tyrese is gone. I mean,
so they have to, and Tyrese never made it to Alexandria, of course. So there was a lot of stuff that Andrea went through before she got to this point.
For me, I thought she went, and this isn't a spoiler since it already happened, kind of, sort of. To me, I thought Andrea's character gained the most death when she got her face slashed.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, so in the comic books, when they're at the prison, they meet the inmates, and one of the inmates is actually psychotic, and obviously, but he's even more so psychotic than regular inmates. He's actually one of, how most inmates say, I don't belong here. He's one of the ones that, oh no, I really do belong here. He's one of those psychotics. And he slashes her face. And there was that part of the comic when they were trying to salvage their humanity. Because, in the beginning in the comics, Rick always goes, so we don't kill, we don't do this, we're still humans. Then he goes and he gets to this point where he's like, you know what? Dad, we need to just survive. That's what we need to do. And everybody else is not ready to go there. And they get to this point where she gets her face slashed and Rick goes in on a dude and everybody's trying to stop Rick and she's stepping in front of them like, no, don't stop him. Let him finish. Like, oh, shoot. She's like, let him finish. And the way they did in the comic, they did it in such a way where you could see her getting hard with every panel. Even when she was with Dale, she was getting harder and harder and harder with every panel.
And see, and part of the parts they messed up at, if you remember, her relationship with Dale. Dale was the one who lost the leg. And it got eaten. So that whole thing with Sasha in the show with Bob and all that stuff, that was all Andrea in the comics. So when you think about the comic development of Andrea, you had all of that stuff up to the prison where she got her face slashed, to losing Dale. So by the time they get to Alexandria, she's just cold. She doesn't have anything left. She doesn't, know anything. She's still wearing Dale cap, his hat, until she starts changing and developing a whole new thing. Sasha started going down this path because they kept Tyrese around. They kept Sasha around. So they made her had this whole story with Bob, who isn't even with Rick's crew in the comic books. But nor is he black. But that's a whole other thing. And so she has this whole relationship.
You're Lily, darling.
Yeah, exactly. So they basically have them. They had to give her that emotional depth to where she loses Tyrese, and now she's cold, and they're making her the Andrea sniper part. But again, if they don't, this is a key indication. The fact that they're making her more like Michonne as well. This is a key indication they don't intend to follow the rest of the stuff with Andrea, because otherwise, then there's nothing else for Sasha to do, and she'll just be the crazy black chick in the Watchtower.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to give her something, and then there's still a wild card. Where the hell is Morgan?
Not to be funny though, like having the crazy black chick in the Watchtower wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. I just keep having these flashbacks of my man Jack Nicholson and A Few Good Men. You want me on that wall. You need me on that wall.
Yeah.
And that's the way Sasha is acting right now, because she was like, I want to be in the clock tower, and Deanna was like, I'll let my son do it first, and we'll see how that goes. And she's like, no, I want to be up there. And then at the end of the episode, she's throwing out the party. I'm like, okay, your ass can be in the clock tower. But moving right along, we need to go ahead and get right into the Apple event, and then we got to get into Phaycetime. So we're going to be really brief with the Apple event. We all know what's happening. Tomorrow, Apple is having their Spring Forward Apple event tomorrow at 1 o'clock Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Pacific. And everyone knows this is when we're going to finally find out the pricing of the Apple Watch. They already announced the Apple Watch last year.
$1 million.
So we all. It's funny because we all know that the Apple Watch, at least the Sport Edition, is supposed to start out at $349. No one knows about the edition. Some are saying $5,000, some saying $10,000, some are saying as high as $20,000 for the gold versions. So for those of you who don't know, if I get one, it's going to be steel or aluminum. There's no gold because that's like my mortgage for the year. But moving right along. So that's going to be tomorrow. There's also a rumor that they may introduce some new MacBook Airs, which is a big deal because the rumored 12-inch MacBook Air with no fans in the Retina display might be revealed tomorrow. But other than that, no one knows what else is going to be revealed. So my question is, what do you guys think that are going to be revealed outside the Apple Watch? And do you plan to get an Apple Watch? Why not?
I'm getting an Apple Watch, but here's the thing. I collect watches. So I'm building up my watch collection these days. That's my thing. Some people do Jordans. I wouldn't do it, but some people probably wouldn't collect watches the way I do. So we all have our vices. That's my thing. That's why I'm getting one. And at first I wasn't going to, but now I've seen somebody with one of those digital watches, and it was actually nice looking. And I was like, well, I want one of those. And so I would get one solely for that. And that's going to be my thing. I'm not going to get the $1 million watch. I promise you that. Just off of principle. But I will get one of the nicer ones if I can, as long as they don't try to break my pockets. I'm going to give me one of the nicer ones I can afford. Even if that means I have to get my aluminum one too, then it is what it is.
And we have people in the chat room right now. We got Bison saying he's definitely getting the Apple Sport Watch at $350. I mean, I don't know what Apple's going to do, but I can't quite see how they're going to sell, the next tier, which is just the Apple. You have Apple Sport, and you have just the Apple Watch. I can't personally, I'm the Apple guy, if you will, for the show. I can't personally justify buying a watch that costs as much as a MacBook, and then the next edition costs more than a Mac Pro fully loaded. I mean, we're talking 12-core processor, I just...
Yeah, Watt goes to send out a message. I'm afraid of the phone. To heck with the watch.
Yeah.
No, I know I'm gonna go get the watch. I've been in the market trying to find a watch, something that I like, and unfortunately, all of the ones that I really, really like started like $2,000 and up. So $350 hit the sweet spot as far as a nice new watch.
And see, I find that so odd. To me, I don't wear watches. I don't wear jewelry. I don't do anything. $350 seems like a lot of money for me for a watch. But you guys are like, I'm hearing this on the internet. I'm hearing this from you guys. I didn't know people paid this much for watches.
Dude, you remember back in the day when people used to be like Rollies and get Rolexes. Rolexes weren't cheap.
Nah, dude, Rolex,
whether they were Rolexes, Movados, whatever, those weren't
run
cheap.
You several thousand,
those will run you several thousand, probably upwards of 10 to 20,000.
Nah, the cheapest you're gonna get a Rolex for is probably about $5.
Well, the cheapest I've seen was $2. This is back in '98.
Yeah, the inflation, bro. Did you?
I'm saying you can probably find something.
Even a Movado, which a lot of people got like the regular Movados. Them joints be like $800-900, just for a regular one. When everybody was into like Tag Heuers, like back in the day. My mom, when I graduated from high school, this was in '96, and my mom was like, "All right, so I know you like watches. I'm gonna get you a watch for your birthday, for your graduation. What you want?" I was like, "Yo, I want a Tag." I love tags. Went to the joint looking at tags. The joint I wanted was $2,500. This was a '96. One was like, okay, good luck with that. See you when you graduate from college.
Look,
Watch this dope.
Look, this is what happened. This is what before me and my wife was married. She was going to buy me something for my birthday. And she was like, I see you like watches. I said, yeah, I really want that Gucci watch. She was like, ooh, so I'm going to get you something. So I'm going around base talking about something. I'm finna get my Gucci. I'm finna get my Gucci watch. This trick bought me a Fossil. That almost ended it right there. She was like, well, it looked like the one you wanted. I know I wasn't finna spend all that money on that watch. I was like, me and you can't give up now.
Tell me why a nice Fossil watch now run you a couple of $100.
I mean, a
nice Fossil joint.
A nice Fossil. That's what I'm saying. Nice watch is gonna cost you. I collect watches, so when I say I buy a watch every year for a reason. I'd buy a couple a year if I had the dough, but I'll buy one a year, and that means it's gonna cost me. You see what I'm saying? So like, if I get this Apple Watch, that's my yearly quota. Unless this show gets syndicated and I get this money, then I'll be like. Three arms across, like, bah! Yo, get it. Get me those watches. What was that joint? Hey, I see that Rolly, cop that. I see that Movado, cop that. Get the Apple Watch, yo, take the Movado back, then cop the other joint. But I'm going to keep it moving. You know what I'm saying? Even suck up that dough.
We got to take Face to the strip club just one time to watch him make it rain, because you know he going to be in that joint like this.
OMG.
I ain't sharing my money with these bros.
So just so we can stay on track, in the chat room, they also following up, Bison, one of our loyal listeners. He said, a good watch can start at $1,500, and he know people who paid $6,000 for Rolex in Bahrain or Bahrain in Dubai. And so I told him maybe I'm just cheap. To me, I thought starting at $350 was a big deal. So maybe I was crazy when people were like, "Oh yeah, the gold Apple Watch could start at $5,000," and I was like, "Who in the hell would spend $5,000?" I guess I stand corrected. So tomorrow we're going to find out how much the different Apple Watch.
Now keep in mind. I ain't spending $5,000 on the watch today. That's because I'm broke. But there
are people who will do it and say that.
No, absolutely. Like, listen, if I had the dough, like, if you just gave me back if I had some dough, or if, like, when I did my Movado, like a couple years ago, I put it on. I did payments, and I would do the same thing. If I could do a payment plan, I'd do it. I want the watch. Like I said, I like nice watches. I like nice watches better than I like nice shoes.
Well, speaking of nice watches, so of course, for those of you who don't know, if you don't already have your iPhone 6, you can use iPhone 5, 5C, or 5S for Apple Pay with the Apple Watch. It will have the sensor in it, and you'll just wave your wrist versus waving your phone. Some of the things that that people don't know is that you can use the watch without the phone, but it's going to be extremely limited because most of the apps on the Apple Watch at this time use the phone for the processing. So like Facebook, your heavy-duty apps are going to run on your iPhone, and it's basically through a Bluetooth connection. It's not quite Bluetooth, but it's a similar technology Apple is using. It's going to sync with your phone to do the stuff there on your watch. There are going to be some native Apple Watch apps. It's just not all there yet. It's going to have different faces that you can select digitally, notifications. You can actually put music on the watch and use it as a iPod.
Whoa, you can't wear your watch going into a federal building then, huh?
Oh, they're going to shut. Well, there's no camera on the watch. And that's the big.
That's always a big thing. Yeah.
That's the thing, that it can't be able to, and there's no ports on it, so it won't be able to hook up to anything either. Yeah. So the Apple Watch should be good for those who have federal government security concerns. Other than that, there's some rumor, but again, like I said, a 12-inch Air and Beats Music, but the Beats Music revamp probably won't happen to WWDC and iOS 3. And I already have iOS 8.3, and I can confirm that there is no beach revamp at this person. So we'll find out tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern. You know for a fact I'm going to be watching it and probably live tweeting, so you can follow me at Darth Geekonius and see me live tweeting about it. But there it is. So now we're at that point in the show where we can just sit back, or I can sit back, and just let our Royal Highness do his thing. We're a little bit over time, but this is YouTube, so we can always just let it run for a few minutes. King Face, it's time to hold court and do a little FaceTime. Go ahead, King Face. Let's see your FaceTime this week. Your Royal Majesty.
All right, so we're going to go right into the FaceTime. Listen, I had music, but let's just talk about what y'all did to me last week. I actually had a track that I was playing, and one of you clowns going to put it in that Wild Bill, it puts the lotion on my skin. That wasn't me, people. I didn't do that. So if y'all was like, why is he dancing to that crazy-ish? I didn't know. I got hijacked. I got hacked. Okay? I was hacked. So we still figuring that out. So till that happens, I'm going to leave my musical talents alone. All right, so we kind of talk. I got several topics, but from time constraints, I'm just gonna go into the one. I think this one is gonna this one should take the rest of the time. We kind of hit on it a little bit, but I want to go in. I want to hear what my fellow geeks and anybody who's listening want to go on a tweet or go on our chat room who they got to say. Last week, it's basically several news stories I got that ultimately goes into one. Last week we all saw, the Power Ranger joint, where they did the Power Ranger fan fiction, and I thought that was ultimate fire. That would have been rated R because there was a lot of craziness into that joint. And you had, it came back on YouTube, but you had a lot of people. You had some people like, oh my God, I can't believe you did that to the Power Rangers. My kid used to watch that, which I thought was straight stupid because I used to watch Power Rangers, and at the time I watched Power Rangers, I also saw every episode of Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, and The Return of the Living Dead. So I don't know what you're talking about, but whatever. And then you got the whole concept of basically talking about rated R content in this genre. You have Arkham City. The Batman Arkham City just came out, and they got the mature rating. And for those that don't understand, that's basically a rated R version for video gaming because of the violence and graphic or whatever. And some people were worried about that, and we'll get into that in a bit. And this is also on the heels of a report that I read, and I just need to share it with you guys. The woman, I'm not going to say a name, a teacher in Ohio has just started her 90-day jail sentence. Ladies and gentlemen, high school teacher in Ohio just started a 90-day jail sentence. Her crime was showing a horror film in her high school classroom. ABCs of Murder.
Seriously?
Yes.
Seriously.
Now this infraction actually happened in 2012.
How'd you get 90 days for that?
Yeah, so the infraction actually happened in 2012. The trial was 2013, and she was just sentenced Wednesday. 90 days in jail for showing teenagers a horror film. I'm just let that marinate with y'all for a hot second, because I don't want to put any more money in the cuss jar, so I'm not going to say anything. But I just find.
Well, I guess it's my turn to put some money in the cuss jar. Then, what the hell kind of society are we living in? We locking up teachers for showing movies.
And it's not that. I mean,
this sounds like freaking Stalin's Italy or not Stalin, like Stalin's Germany or Mussolini's Italy or something. Like, what kind of this is?
Well, that's part of the topic. That's part of the debate here. Is because what you having right now is, I don't want to call it sissifying, but that's what it is. Because you got a lot of these parents whenever you get something that you don't like, you use the kids as your shield. That's normally what happens. And with these rated R shows and movies, like we talked about that, why some of these comic book movies that come out, why some of them don't do as well as they should, Wolverine, but that don't do as well as they should because they try to pretty it up because they feel, well, we want everybody to be able to go watch it. And to me, I'm like, I'm taking my son to watch Wolverine regardless of what you do. If it's rated R, we're gonna watch because he knows what Wolverine is. He reads the comics, so it's not like he's gonna see something in Wolverine and go, oh my God, he's cutting people and they're bleeding. If they read Wolverine, that's what it is. And there's certain comic book characters that you can't pretty it up and make it fun. That's the whole allure. And plus, these are kids. They play Mortal Kombat, for Christ's sake. Like, you really what are you shielding them from? I think what's happening now, and these were high school students, by the way. I don't know what grade they were, but it don't matter. You either between 13 and 18 years old. At the time, we were 13 to 18 years old. Like I said, we've watched every single scary movie. I've seen all the Hellraisers, for crying out loud. Like, there was nothing that you haven't watched when you're 13. And when you're a teenager, you aren't necessarily numb to the world at this point. I don't understand why as a society we're actually thinking that at 18 you don't know nothing about nothing, and why you would even want that to be the case.
Yeah,
but
seriously, dude. Like, I'm gonna have to say this, and I've said this before. I'm gonna say this again. This is why you have all these kids now that's freaking committing suicide and doing crazy stuff because they lack coping skills. Like, you can't sugarcoat and cover up things so much that kids can't deal with reality. Like, they're so used to getting their way, they don't have no accountability for like anything anymore. We have a generation of entitled, spoiled brats that when they're actually forced to address something in a realistic sense, they fall apart. Like, this is freaking Prozac Nation. Like, all these kids is on antidepressants and mood stabilizers and mind-altering drugs because they can't deal with reality.
All of a sudden has ADD all of a sudden.
Yeah, like, everybody owed him something. Like,
your kid talks a lot to other kids, so he must have ADD. Really? He's a freaking kid. That's what kids do.
Pretty much.
Like
shut him up.
That was like that hurt.
You know what I wanted to say. And that's part of my thing. Like, you got all these things, like, they doing a new Deadpool. I don't know what the rating is, but if it ain't rated R,
look, Ryan Reynolds is saying he is doing his damnedest to make Fox
make sure it's rated R.
He's fighting hard for that
because certain characters, that's what they are, and it's like you're trying to. You want to be able to do a spinoff between where Deadpool goes to My Little Ponies. Really? Is that what you're trying to do? So you can merge them all together? That's dumb because they're not in the same world. And I think not every comic book character needs to be gritty, but the ones that are gritty, they need to be gritty. If the ones that are, that take it there, they need to be that. I mean, could you imagine a Punisher that was PG? I can't. I couldn't do it.
Not to be funny though, I blame the parents. Like, and hear me out on this one. Like,
go ahead.
I blame the parents because they don't take the time to sit down and, one, discipline, and then two, explain things to their kids, set boundaries and parameters. In my own neighborhood in Brooklyn, they literally are petitioning to get the Icy Man banned from Prospect Park because people who've moved into the neighborhood feel like they shouldn't be harassed by their kids coming to them to bottom ices and to bottom ice cream. So as opposed to telling the kid no and setting up boundaries and parameters so this child understands that they shouldn't feel entitled, you're going to put somebody out of a job and take away essentially a cultural element of New York City in the summertime. The Icy Man.
Not just New York City. That's a cultural element.
I grew up in Jersey, and I'm telling you right now, as soon as you said that, I started hearing the jingle in my head. I heard Mr. Softy right out the gate. I was like,
with all the craziness in the world, with all of the hype and aggression and all that, here in the midst of ice is the one thing that brings me back to, at least we can relax. Get the ice.
But that
was fun.
Hear what I'm saying though. Like, it's that lack of character. It's that lack of accountability. It's that lack of sitting there and talking to your kid and telling them, no, this is good, this is bad, or you can't have an icy if for no other reason, mommy ain't got no damn money right now. That's why you can't have one.
You can't have one today. You can't have one tomorrow. You know.
Or even you got kids running around doing stuff. They shooting other kids. They running around. They jumping kids because they don't understand the consequences of their actions. I've been practicing martial arts for the better part of a decade, and one of the things that comes out of that is you understand pain. Like one of the things that my teacher always told me is like, yo, we teach through pain. And I didn't understand in the beginning, and now I get it. Like if you know how something feel, if you know what it feels like to have your arm torqued to the point where it's about to break and that pain, you're not going to be like, yo, I'm going to do that too because it's fun. You know it's not fun. You know how much it hurt. It's the same thing. Like these kids don't have any limits. We've coddled them so much, and we haven't spent the time educating them and building their minds up. So like now you're gonna lock up a teacher for showing a horror movie? That's ridiculous.
And for anybody who's sitting there like, yo, why is Potbelly going off right now? Listen, I want to go off too because I think it all ties in together. I mean, the reason you like, why aren't we watching these rated R shows? We talking about rated R shows, but it's part of the problem because we whenever, like I said, whenever you feel uncomfortable as a person, you want to try to shield your kid from these uncomfortable things. And it's like, yo, at some point you gonna have to back up. Like, and I do that. Like, I try to practice that with my kid. Don't get me wrong. There are things that make me squeamish sometimes with my kids, but at the same time, I try to do my best not to shield them. And I guess what? Hold up. Concept. Here it goes. I talk to my kids. Oh my God. You should try it. It's crazy. I actually talk to them. Whenever we watch something, like, matter of fact, I was watching ABC's of Horror because I just wanted to see what was so crazy that you get locked up. And after watching, I'm like, this was more like comedic than scary.
But yo, you want to hear something crazy though? Like everybody here is in their 30s, like early to mid 30s. You think about
I'm 28.
You need to chill with that.
Okay, so I'm gonna leave you in your fantasy world, and I'm gonna continue now.
All right now, don't get hurt.
All right, Grandpa.
We don't talking about spoilers. You need to chill out.
Think about this for a second. Think about all the things that your parents talked to you about when you was a kid. Think about how like all those lessons, and you ain't get it at the time. And I know all your moms, you know, like think about all those lessons and how as you got older, like stuff that your parents told you when you was like 10 started to chime in like, wow, I didn't really get that back then, but yo, right now that lesson is really helping me out. Or damn, so that's what that meant. I ain't doing that again. Like if you spend the time, if you make the investment, it pays off in dividends. You might not see it right then, but down the road you get it. Like I remember stuff that my mom's was telling me that again, I'll fess up to it. I'm in my 30s. I'm just now starting to get it, and I'm just like, wow. So that made a whole lot of sense, and I appreciate that.
That's why the term comes: the older you get, the smarter your parents look, because that's what normally happens. And I think when you got a lot of these kids raised by TV, when I say that, I mean you got a lot of these parents who just basically sit their kids down in front of TV and then go on and do their thing, and that's their relief. And I'm like, yo, my kids watch TV too, but I'm quick to be like, yo, shut the TV off. Y'all been watching TV all day. Shut that joint off. Let's chill together. You know, what we do in our house, we don't allow phones at the TV room. When we all go out, I don't allow phones to dominate whenever we out in a setting, because I feel like that's too much. You have this, it has its time and place. But you need to be able to actually sit there and talk to your family and be able to go over something, be a parent. Like, you can't shield them. And I think that's part of the problem. So you get these kids watching these things and you're thinking, oh my God, I can't believe they're watching. And it's like, really? Are you really tripping because they watching some crazy stuff that you probably watched at the same age? I don't get that. I think that's foolish. And I think one is and that's what's killing the actual movie set. Because you're getting a lot of these movies that aren't as good as they could be because of Mothers of America. And I'm hitting on y'all because normally it's y'all that come out with all this dumb ish. So, you know, it's normally those things that's like, yo, let's not let them do this. Let's not let them see this. Oh my God, they're just kids. And they'll just be kids until they like 25. You know what I mean?
Just be kids till they 40-year-old serial.
Be told. I mean, it's true. Like, it doesn't matter how old you get a 21-year-old that do something stupid. It's like, oh, he's just too young. He just doesn't know. And it's like, at what point are you going to let him be responsible? That's part of the problem right there. And I think, it all, like I said, it all ties in. I want to share something with you guys because, one of the things that they said is the reason why they don't make stuff rated R is because, the companies want to make some money and sell to the kids. And I'm like, it doesn't matter if you put the content out. People are going to go because they're going to want to buy these toys anyway. I'm gonna drop some bombs on y'all. Ready? RoboCop. Animation series, toys. Successful. Am I lying? Back in the day, they were successful. Rambo. Cartoon series, toys. Toxic Avenger, Aliens, Starship Troopers, Police Academy even had its own show, and Conan the Barbarian. Cartoons, toys, successful. Some of Hasbro's best-selling items. Guess what they all have in common? Every single one of these shows is rated freaking R. Every single one of them joints was rated R when they first came out. And this is back in our time. And we watched them. I don't see me shooting niggas in the street. Oh, I'm sorry. But I'm just saying. I'm just saying. You don't see me going around doing no crazy foolishness. You know what I'm saying? I'm not in any danger. And so it just seems like all these arguments are moot. And I think a lot of it is projection. You can have a decent show, and if it has to have some rated R content or mature content, mostly with the violence or whatever, it is what it is. It's in the comics anyway, and all you got to do is, if you're really feeling that salty about it, talk to your kids. Tell them what they should and shouldn't do. Be a parent. You know what I'm saying? Stop trying to let everybody else be parents to your children for you. And that's part of the problem. That's the overreaching theme, is that you got a lot of these parents that don't want to be parents, and therefore we all suffering because of it. We don't get Mr. Icy, and Deadpool's going to be rated PG-13, and I'm just mad as hell right now.
I feel like that star should go across the screen now. The more you know. I mean, at the end of the day, we just have to sit there and look at society and say we're just in a different place than we were. And because mom is like 14 now, grandma's 34, big mama's 50, and she's working full time. It's just not the same. We're in a different. I don't know, but we're going to go ahead and end on that note. I'd like to thank King Face for this wonderful, excellent FaceTime. Now I'm probably going to go to bed hearing the damn Ice Cream Man jingle in my head all night. Looking around the corner. And I think we had a lot of interesting discussion. Of course, tomorrow again is the Apple event. Check out the shows we talked about: Star Wars Rebels, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Gotham, The Walking Dead. Also, we know that we got a couple more weeks, and Game of Thrones is going to be premiering, so we're going to be talking about Khaleesi. So thank you all. Thank you, fellas. I'd like to thank King Face. I'd like to thank Ghost and the Potbelly Samurai. Thank you, fellas. And to the rest of y'all,
peace.
Later.